You have been locked in a room for 15 years. You don't know why. You don't know who did it. When you are finally released, you realize the real prison was outside all along. What waits at the end of Oldboy is a revenge story that turns into one of the most disturbing experiences cinema has to offer. If you're ready, let's begin. 1988. Dae-su is drunk on his way home when he suddenly wakes up in a prison. He has no idea how he got there or who brought him. Every day a tray of food slides under the door. He asks the person who brings it again and again, but never gets an answer. Inside the room there is only a TV and a painting. To keep track of time, he carves a mark on his arm for every year. He trains his body to stay strong. He tries to dig through the wall to escape, but fails. Not knowing why he is there becomes the real torture. But the worst moment comes when he learns from the TV that his wife has been murdered, and that he is blamed as the killer. From that moment on, he sharpens himself for revenge. His mind slowly turns into something monstrous. How long can someone be imprisoned without knowing the reason and still remain human? One day, a woman comes to him and starts talking. She hypnotizes him. When he wakes up, he finds himself stopping a man who is about to jump from a rooftop. This scene will return later in the film. As he goes down in an elevator, he panics and screams. When he gets out, he lights a cigarette because the elevator terrifies him. He does not know where it is taking him. After 15 years, he is finally free, but the world has completely changed. Now it is time for revenge. A beggar approaches him, hands him a phone, and walks away. When Dae-su enters the restaurant for his first meal, he meets a young woman named Mido. When she asks, "Have we met before?" it becomes the first real trap set for the audience. Was this a coincidence, or were they two lab rats carefully pushed together inside Woo-jin's experiment? Dae-su begins chasing the taste of the dumplings he ate during his imprisonment. When he finally finds it at a place called Blue Dragon, he knows he is close. He follows the delivery motorcycles and discovers the secret prison where he was held. Inside, he faces an entire army. This is where the legendary single-take corridor fight begins. Armed with only a hammer, he releases 15 years of buried rage, cutting his way forward. But the real shock comes at the end when he finally comes face to face with the man who imprisoned him, Woo-jin. Woo-jin does not intend to end Dae-su's life. Instead, he gives him a choice. If you discover why I locked you up within 5 days, this ends with me. If you fail, Mido will suffer the consequences. Forced to search his past, Dae-su digs through the dusty shelves of his memory and returns to his high school years. As he goes back to his old school and tries to remember what really happened, he realizes that his true enemy was never Woo-jin, but his own tongue. When he was young, he saw something and whispered it to just one friend. That whisper became gossip, and that gossip led to a young girl losing her life. What Dae-su does not yet understand is that the revenge was never just 15 years of imprisonment. Woo-jin's real plan is not to cause physical pain, but to make Dae-su experience that horrifying truth himself, leaving him alive, but hollow inside. So what exactly did Dae-su see? Before that answer is revealed, his closeness with Mido continues to grow. While Dae-su searches for the reason behind Woo-jin's hatred that reaches back to their high school years, his bond with Mido becomes stronger and deeper. After 15 years of isolation, Mido becomes his only refuge, his only anchor in the world. Their growing connection turns into the kind of love that makes the audience think that maybe a happy ending is still possible. But what Dae-su does not know is that, from the very beginning, they have been following a script written by Woo-jin. When Dae-su returns to his past and his old high school, he uncovers the dark memory at the center of everything. He once saw a young Woo-jin and his sister together in the school laboratory, in an intimacy that was never meant to be seen. With a single whisper, Dae-su spread this forbidden relationship, and that small whisper grew into an avalanche that pushed Woo-jin's sister toward a tragic end. Here, the film mirrors its opening scene once again. For Dae-su, it was nothing more than careless gossip. For Woo-jin, it was the collapse of his entire world. But the story does not end there, because the cruelest part of the revenge is this. The same forbidden relationship Dae-su witnessed back then is the one he is now living in his own life, with Mido. If at this point you are asking, who exactly is Mido? This is where Oldboy becomes truly unbearable. In Woo-jin's luxury apartment, Dae-su opens the album and is crushed by the weight of reality. Mito is not a coincidence. She is the little girl Dae-su left behind 15 years earlier. Woo-jin's revenge is so carefully designed that he hypnotized Dae-su into falling in love with his own daughter, making him experience the worst trauma of his life at his happiest moment. Dae-su now pays for the gossip he whispered years ago with the horror of loving his own child. Overcome with shame and disgust, he kneels before Woo-jin, begging him not to tell Mito the truth. For the words that started everything, he punishes himself by permanently silencing his ability to speak. It is a man destroying himself to atone for his sin. In the end, Dae-su chooses hypnosis to forget everything. The film closes with him standing beside Mito wearing a faint smile. Did the hypnosis work? How much did he forget? Did he forget who she is or only what they lived through? These questions are left unanswered. Oldboy tricks us into thinking we are watching an action film. It lifts us up with power and violence. But when it ends, we realize we are standing in the middle of a nauseating tragedy. Nolan films challenge the mind. Oldboy attacks the soul. It shows us that the greatest prison is not made of walls but of memory, and that the deadliest weapon is not a hammer but the human tongue. And this is why forgetting is not an escape, but the final stage of the punishment. To understand how precise and deeply disturbing this plan really is, one detail is enough. For 15 years, Lee Woo-jin did not raise Mito with a father's care, but as bait he was preparing to place in front of Dae-su when the time came. He went so far that when the owner of the prison crossed a line with Mito, Woo-jin responded with extreme punishment and sent a clear message. This was not loyalty. It was a twisted, protective instinct toward his project. At the beginning of the story, Dae-su is the victim, and Woo-jin is the cruel one, but by the end, those roles completely reverse. Woo-jin completes his revenge and finds peace, while Dae-su openly admits that he has become a monster himself. But the true tragedy of the finale shows us something else. Physical pain fades, wounds heal, and enemies in dark corridors can be defeated. But a doubt planted inside the mind and a forbidden desire tied to your own blood grows far beyond the walls of any prison. Oldboy leaves the audience with a final question. Is it harder to become a real monster or to live on as the victim of one, fully aware of the truth? Oldboy is not a revenge film. It is a story about how a single word can destroy a life. What Lee Woo-jin gains is not anger but guilt, so if it were you, would you want to know everything or would you choose to forget? If you enjoy this kind of detailed film analysis, subscribe to the channel and like the video.